and had to use it like a giant. She told him that lightning strikes the oak and spares the myrtle. She bade him look for fault in his own breast, and if he found one, to refrain from making it an argument against her brother's life. Angelo found a fault in his breast at that moment. He loved Isabella's beauty, and was tempted to do for her beauty what he wouldn't do for the love of man. He appeared to relent, for he said, "Come to me tomorrow before noon." She had, at any rate, succeeded in prolonging her brother's life for a few hours. In her absence, Angelo's conscience rebuked him for trifling with his judicial duty. When Isabella called on him the second time, he said, "Your brother can't live." Isabella was painfully astonished, but all she said was, "Even so, heaven keep your honour." But as she turned to go, Angelo felt that his duty and honour were slight in comparison with the loss of her. "Give me your love," he said, "and Claudio shall be freed." "Before I'd marry you, he should die if he had 20 heads to lay upon the block," said Isabella, for she saw then that he wasn't the just man he pretended to be. So she went to her brother in prison to inform him that he must die. At first he was boastful, and promised to hug the darkness of death. But when he clearly understood that his sister could buy his life by marrying Angelo, he felt his life more valuable than her happiness, and he exclaimed, "Sweet sister, let me live." "O faithless coward! O dishonest wretch!" she cried. At this moment the Duke came forward, in the habit of a friar, to request some speech with Isabella. He called himself Friar Lodovick. The Duke then related the love story between Angelo and Mariana. He then asked her to consider this plan. Let Mariana, in the dress of Isabella, go closely veiled to Angelo, and say in a voice resembling Isabella's that if Claudio were spared, she would marry him. Let her take the ring from Angelo's little finger, that it might be afterwards proved that his visitor was Mariana. Isabella had, of course, a great respect for friars, who are as nearly like nuns as men can be. She agreed, therefore, to the Duke's plan. They were to meet again at the moated grange, Mariana's house. In the street the Duke saw Lucio, who, seeing a man dressed like a friar, called out, "What news of the Duke, friar?" "I have none," said the Duke. Lucio then told the Duke some stories about Angelo. Then he told one about the Duke. The Duke contradicted him. Lucio was provoked, and called the Duke a shallow, ignorant fool, though he pretended to love him. "The Duke shall know you better if I live to report you," said the Duke grimly. Then he asked Aeschylus, whom he saw in the street, what he thought of his master. Aeschylus, who imagined he was speaking to a friar, replied, "The Duke is a very temperate gentleman, who prefers to see another merry to being merry himself." The Duke then proceeded to call on Mariana. Isabella arrived immediately afterwards, and the Duke introduced the two girls to one another, both of whom thought he was a friar. They went into a chamber, apart from him, to discuss the saving of Claudio. And while they talked in low and earnest tones, the Duke looked out of the window and saw the broken sheds and flower-beds, black with moss, which betrayed Mariana's indifference to her country dwelling. Some women would have beautified their garden, not she. She was for the town. She neglected the joys of the country. He was sure that Angelo wouldn't make her unhappier. "We are agreed, father," said Isabella, as she returned with Mariana. So Angelo was deceived by the girl whom he had dismissed from his love, and put on her finger a ring he wore, in which was set a milky stone which flashed in the light with secret colours. Hearing of her success, the Duke went next day to the prison, prepared to learn that an order had arrived for Claudio's release. It had not, however, but a letter was banded to the provost while he waited. His amazement was great when the provost read aloud these words: "Whatsoever you may hear to the contrary, let Claudio be executed by 4 of the clock. Let me have his head sent me by 5. But the Duke said to the provost, "You must..."